Welcome to the Kentucky Bankers Association Vendor Viewpoint podcast, where we bring Kentucky bankers together with the industry's top vendor solutions to discuss important topics that affect your bank. On today's show, Selena Parrish, KBA's Director of Membership, Products, and Services, has an enlightening conversation with David Still, Managing Director at Intrafy Network, and Andy Hunt, CFO at Farmers Bank and Trust in Marion, Kentucky. They'll be discussing reciprocal deposits. What are they and why do they matter to your bank? All right, Selena, I'd like to hand it over to you now.
Hello, audience. This is Selena Parrish, KBA Director of Membership, Products, and Services. Welcome to our podcast. Since 2004, KBA has endorsed IntraFi Network. Dave Still's with us today. Dave, give us some background on IntraFi and all the work you're doing with KBA members.
Selena, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm grateful for this opportunity and the relationship we've had with the association. We as a company have been around for nearly 2 decades now, which is a long, long time. We are the largest bank network of its kind. We are a trusted partner to over 3,000 plus banks. And really what our services do, they create a level playing field for community banks to be able to compete with the biggest banks in the country.
Thanks so much, Dave. That's great. And Andy, give us some background on your experience there at Farmers Bank and Trust in Marion.
We are about a $140 million bank in 2015 with 3 locations. Today, we're about 500 million with 10 locations. Me personally, I've been here about 15 years with the bank and in various roles, internal audit, I've been a lender, and now I'm the CFO of the bank. I wear many hats, like the typical community banker, so my time is valuable, just like all of ours. The other day, I ordered ice melt for the bank. I met with the landscaper. Recently, I've been shoveling snow on the sidewalks as part of bad weather, stacked 50 boxes of paper that came in. So I'm not just a CFO, so there are lots of things going on here. And a little background on our accounting department. It's a 3-person department. One of those people is the internal auditor, another one's a staff accountant, and the other one is myself.
Andy, thank you for sharing that. You sound like you have your hands full, especially the way this late winter has been with some of the weather we've been getting. I don't envy that role by any means, but I'm going to try to focus on this content this afternoon. Give us an idea why you chose IntraFi and the importance of reciprocal deposits for your bank.
You know, we saw it as a way to fundamentally change our balance sheet. We had several issues that we knew existed, but we just didn't have a really great way to fix them long term or to improve things long term. So after we kind of studied what reciprocal deposits was, what Intrafy was about, we really viewed this as low-hanging fruit for us. And it kind of became a question of not should or shouldn't we do this, but more so of when can we get this done?
Yeah, I like that. When you think about reciprocal deposits and with the legislation being changed to allow those to be treated as core-like, that really has been a game changer for a lot of community banks like yours.
Oh, absolutely. We're a bank that typically non-core funding is a really important thing to us. So being able to bring on public unit deposits and have them count as core is huge for us.
Yeah, I'm hearing that a lot. When you think about the relationship with IntraFi, how has it affected your bank?
It's in several ways, definitely the one that comes to mind the quickest is liquidity. And by choice, we always have less liquidity than the average bank. We're just going to be a little bit tighter. And this has allowed us not to be forced into buying investments for liquidity purposes that we wouldn't have been buying otherwise. So whenever we've been in this low rate environment recently, earnings gets affected if we're having to buy mortgage-backed securities at 1 or 1.25. Obviously, rates have gone up recently, but that's where we've been landing at for a little while now. So instead of that, we're investing in loans that we can get at 2.5 or 3.5, maybe 4% higher than what those investments would have been for us. So real quick math for us, it means over $1 million gross a year that we could have coming into our bank that we wouldn't have otherwise due to this relationship. Also, flexibility for us, if we had a large public unit deposit that we had on a contract, and then that time we lost the bid the next go around, it would cripple us if we were locked into some investments and the rate environment moved against us and we had to back out of that somehow. So we've taken on the largest public unit deposit that we have had in the history of the bank directly because of this program allowing us to do that. And then probably another way that this has affected our relationship is the pledging part of it, where we do all our pledging manually. We've got Excel spreadsheets. Somebody's looking things up on investment reports. That burden for the public unit deposits that are on the IntraFi system is taken away. So we don't have all of our public unit deposits on the IntraFi system. Some relationships don't align exactly, but the massive amount that we do have on there, we have a doubled amount of our public unit deposits, and it's actually less of a burden now in pledging than it was before we took on all those public unit deposits. So that's probably liquidity, earnings, flexibility, and pledging are probably the 4 main ways the relationship with the Intrafy has affected our bank.
Yeah, that's helpful. I think that will really resonate with a lot of community banks throughout the state. When I think about how we help banks, it always, to me, in you putting that meaningful number behind it, it means more. I can conceptually kind of paint the picture of how a bank can use us and the impact it's had. But what you just went through in those 4 things paints a picture that this thing can make a dramatic impact in a bank's franchise value. And
absolutely. Yeah.
I think there are times when banks have a perception of our network and that it's going to be a lot of work and it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of energy. And like you said, you're a department that doesn't have the resources that big banks have. You do it yourself. And I think that part that you just shared is going to be very meaningful. When you think about the sign-up process with Intrafy, can you talk a little bit about what that experience was like?
Yeah, and talking about big banks, I mean, I'm from the town that our bank is in, so we're not the smartest people in the world. We didn't figure this out. Nobody else has. It's just a process that, you just kind of go through. And once you do, it turns out that it's really something that's good for your bank once we figured it out. So it took us a few months really to get signed up, probably because with change, our bank moves about as slow as molasses in the winter. We just are naturally cautious. That's our position for things. We really want to dig in to understand something, all the good things, all the kind of neutral, and all the things that might not be so good about everything. So I think most other banks will sign up on this process quicker than we did. But obviously, you got to fill out some paperwork. You got to set up some new GL accounts. And you want to test your integration with your core processor. As part of that, in the sign-up process, the integration piece, that's what really makes it possible for our bank. If we had to do this manually, there's not a chance in the world we would ever be able to do this. As many accounts, as many relationships and accounts as we put on the system, there's no way we could handle it with just 3 people. But the integration runs seamlessly, and it virtually needs no attention to run. I literally maybe have one time a month, if that I even make an adjustment to the system on Intrafy. So once you get past this initial sign-up process, it really is something that runs by itself.
That's helpful. Thank you for sharing that as well. I've been talking about the integration piece for years. And some banks have a perception, do I really need it? Do I need it? Do I need it, Dave? And I'm like, absolutely. You may not need it today, but there'll be a point in time that it adds so much value because it's easy. And it's, you're like a lot of banks out there. There aren't tons of people in your department to be able to do those things. And once you take the time to set it up, it does make it a whole lot more efficient for you. And I think also it's a win for the customer because it does add value to that part of it as well.
Oh, it provided a lot of assurance to our public unit folks about being covered and with FDIC insurance, that whenever I could say it's automatic, there, I'm not going to have to get a phone call from you to tell me you made a $500,000 deposit today and to cover that with pledging tomorrow, that it just picks it up automatic. That is a game changer for folks, and it eases a lot of worry about covering those.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you for that color. Let's talk about the onboarding process for a customer depositor. I mean, what's that like?
We use the ICS side of the program. With that, there's a depositor placement agreement, and that takes about 2 minutes to complete for a customer. Once you familiarize yourself with it, you each sign it, and then once you have your checking accounts open on your core, and you set them up on the Intrafy website. And setting up a customer on the Intrafy website, and then their accounts usually takes me about 5 minutes. It's very, very simple, very straightforward. It's rinse and repeat on every single customer as far as the information you're putting in and whatnot. It's just the information from your core that you're just typing in on the website to set up the customer. It's nothing special. And kind of as a side note to this, once you're onboarding customers and such, I really recommend starting this with a couple of very friendly customers and kind of get your feet wet, see how things go. Go through a couple statement cycles first, just so you understand what the customer is going to see and what they're going to, the differences in what it was before and what it is now, before you go all in. That's kind of the method that we chose, and it worked really well for us. And so it probably will work well for others too.
Yeah, I think you used this expression earlier, that low-hanging fruit. Friends of the bank, good customers of the bank. I always encourage that as well. That makes a lot of sense. That way you figure out what it's going to look like. You don't want some of this largest customer opportunities, throw them into this and then get surprised. That makes good sound judgment.
Yeah, and with it, I mean, if you have a complex customer, I think this is a great product for them. It just probably isn't the person you want to go with out of the gate. So
yeah. I get asked that a lot. What types of customers?
Yeah.
And every bank's a little different, but I think that will resonate with people who listen in.
Yeah, and for us, the customer that this works for, I mean, it's on the public unit deposit side, ones with large balances, ones that are have lots of volatility in their balances that are going to go up, and so you have to pledge a lot of excess to them to cover those deposits. Then a lot of days it's not really used, but some days it is. That it goes for a lot of folks really, really well, and we have multiple different customers for different reasons on it, and there is something about it that fits them in each situation really, really well.
Yeah, there's one thing I want to kind of drill in here. There are a lot of banks throughout the state that aren't really too crazy about managing collateral, but it's not broke, so they don't want to fix it. They don't know if their customers are going to accept it. And the picture I try to paint is that the customers aren't going to resist it if you're comfortable painting the picture of why it's in their best interest to do so. And many times that customer or depositor, what he or she is asking or wanting to know, is this okay? Is it legit? How is my auditor going to feel? Is this going to get me in trouble? They want to be reassured. And I, outside looking in, have a hard time sometimes painting that picture, but hearing it from you and the success you've had, I think that's helpful to share.
Yeah, the auditor piece, we tell each customer that we sign up on this that whenever they go through their audit, if there is any negativity toward this program whatsoever, we want to be made aware of it. Absolutely. We are willing to be on phone calls, come meet with the auditor to discuss it. Most of the time, folks send it to the auditor ahead of time to have them review it. But we've got their back on this 100%. And so far, we've had no issues with auditors whatsoever on this.
Yeah, that speaks volumes. You guys have done it the right way. It all goes through you. And that's a big thing one of the takeaways in our success formula is there's got to be a champion internal. Many times it helps if it's the CFO or the controller or the president, whoever that relationship person is, but you've maximized the opportunity with it.
Yeah, and for me as a CFO of this bank and taking on this, it's not been burdensome. I can't specifically say how many customers and accounts we have on our system, but probably more than 10 customers and nearly 100 accounts total. And it just isn't a big deal for me to do this. And, I understand where the bank's headed and how funding works and all the different parts of our balance sheet. So it's really good for me to be heavily involved with this. But this isn't something that, I couldn't pass off because it's too complicated. It's so simple and it works with what I'm trying to do on a daily basis that it fits really well for my job.
Yeah, it's been my experience typically when you have a CFO involved, someone that really understands why the cause and effect of moving customers into this bucket, it resonates. The one thing I wanted to make sure we talked about, and I hope we still have some time to do this, when I present who we are, what we do, and I talk about the experience, sometimes banks, they don't really understand why I'm so passionate about our customer service. Because once a bank joins our network, they don't leave. They're very, very happy with, I call what's the X factor, behind the scenes. Once you start doing it, the interaction you have, not necessarily with me, but our entire client services team. And if you would, could you spend a few minutes and talk about that?
Oh, absolutely. And let me say first, Dave, you're great to work with and you're very responsive. Obviously, I'm going to brag a little bit harder on the other folks in the customer service area here. I don't mean to be hurtful to you, but the customer service part, I don't say comments like this lightly because I just feel like they're easy to say and not to mean sometimes. But I don't think you can find another company with this quality of customer service. It's absolutely off the charts. I call over small things instead of aimlessly just wandering around the website. Instead of looking for something for 5 or 10 minutes, maybe it's something really small. I just pick up the phone and call. It's that quick. It's that easy. It's why wouldn't I do that? One time early on, I called 7 times in one day. I knew my question would be answered quickly and easily, and so I'm familiarizing myself with things. I'm having questions. Instead of making a list, I just pick up and call right then. It's just that simple. So, when you call in, an auto attendant does pick up, but you hit the one button twice, and then a familiar person's going to pick up. And I say familiar because you get the same people when you call in. Ben is the person that I seem to be set up with the most, and that's just by chance that he's the one that takes our calls. And this, I guess we've been with the program now since about the middle of last year that we've had customers using the system. All the times that I've called in, I've only had one call where the person who answered the phone didn't know my question or didn't know the answer to my question immediately. And that question was regarding a specific line on the call report. So, it's pretty often the weed stuff. And they didn't know that, but they put me on hold for about 2 minutes and researched it and came back with what we had determined we thought was the correct answer, and then it matched. So, they did find out the answer, and that's really important. It's not that they have to know every single answer, but if they can say, I don't know, and then research it, I'm all for that. So, excuse me. But regards to the call report piece, there is one thing that, folks need to know in that area is that there is a file that is produced that literally shows you line by line what you need to do on the call report. I know that's sometimes a big deal, that, how is this going to affect the call report? And that's a dreadful thing. It shouldn't be, because literally this report just tells you exactly what to do. So I know it's not exactly customer service oriented there, but that is one thing with the call report that's nice. But it's kind of circling back to customer service. I mean, it really is top notch. It's extremely impressive that a company can do this well at customer service and be this helpful on a product. The product's great, and then on top of it, it's an addition to, we knew that liquidity was going to be good. We knew our earnings should be affected positively, that pledging was going to be less burdensome, but we didn't know that we were going to be affected so positively by the customer service experience. So I know I've gone on about that for a while, but it really does deserve that much attention. Where normally you're going to be worried about it or be put on hold forever or something like that. That's not been my experience at all with this company.
Andy, thank you so much. I'll make sure that I share internal with the team, kind of behind the scenes, that does the blocking and tackling. That's the face of us a lot of times, because you don't get the people in the field. You typically get the customer service folks. And the last thing we'd want to have happen is you pick up the phone, you call, and they go, I don't know. Time is money. You've got other things you got to do. And I appreciate you sharing that much detail and clarity. I think that's helpful. I don't want to ramble, but I think in closing, what I'll ask you, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but when you think about it hypothetically, if you were not in the network and you were in a position where you needed to make a change, would you do it again? Would you join?
You're not putting me on the spot at all with that. I mean, if this relationship was, half as beneficial as it is, I would definitely do it again. This has set us up for the future in a way that I would never have thought this would have been possible with this relationship. I mean, I would absolutely do this again for our bank and would highly recommend it for others.
Well, I think what I need to do is I need to get in the car, come see you, and we need to go out on the road for a couple of weeks.
I don't have that much time now.
I'll beg and give you some more vacation time, because I can't paint the picture. I just can't paint the picture because I don't do what you do day in and day out. And I said it earlier, I'm grateful, Selena, for this opportunity. Andy, I'm grateful that you're in our network and that you told your story today. I think it always is more powerful when it comes from a peer, somebody that's in the trenches, that's managing the balance sheet. I very much appreciate you taking the time and this opportunity.
Certainly, and of course, hearing your all's story, it's like, why isn't every bank in Kentucky calling Dave Steele? So, Dave, tell us, what is the best way for KBA members to get in contact with you so they can start doing everything like Andy's doing over there at Farmers?
Yeah, the most direct way to get a hold of me is to call me on my cell. And that cell number is 636-575-0392. My email, if that's easier way for them to communicate, is dstill@intrafy.com, and that still is STILL. Or they can call toll free at 866-776-6426. And my direct extension is 3439. It'll get sent directly to my cell.
Perfect. And I know on KBA's website, we've got a full page of IntraFi network information located at kybanks.com in our products and services section. So I know that's another resource that our KBA members could tap into as well. But I can't thank you both enough for spending this afternoon with us and going through all the great things that you're doing, Dave, because I think in Kentucky, it's great to know that we're partnered with a company like IntraFi, where you can help banks of all asset size. You are working with many, and all community banks can tap into what you have available. So
thanks again. It's been my pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much. And it's great to have both of you. Thank you for your time today. And I think this podcast is a wrap. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone.
Take care.